Yeah, let's talk about cancer and how I was misdiagnosed for probably a very, very long time. So, for years now, I have had thyroid issues, and it took a while for me to find an endocrinologist, especially as an adult, that would listen to me and actually hear me out. For a while, I kept saying I was always tired, I didn't feel well, I was forgetting things. My weight was fluctuating, lots of huge thyroid issue problems. And there's this one endocrinologist I'll never forget. I thought she was going to be, really helpful because she looked like me. But in fact, she was not helpful at all. The only thing that she told me was that she can't do anything, and that if I'm, trying to get pregnant, then I should go see her again. So then I was talking to my mom, and she was like, well, you should try my endocrinologist. So that's when I was finally set up with the endocrinologist that I have now. So, still explaining my symptoms to her, she was able to help me get onto medication, which did help. And then shortly after that, I started experiencing other symptoms, and then that's when I moved to Arizona. When I moved to Arizona, I did not have an endocrinologist, but I did have a PCP who was still kind of managing the same prescription dose that I was on. But the cons with that was she just really wasn't well versed in the issues that I was having. When I moved back to where I'm from, I went back to my same endocrinologist. She upped my dosage, and then things were okay, but I still felt like something was off. Something in my body was telling me that there's something bigger happening, and I couldn't pinpoint if it was thyroid related or something else related until around March 2025 when I went to go see my OBGYN for something completely different. I was telling her some of my symptoms and just, how I did have thyroid issues. And then she was like, oh, we should, let me just feel your neck. She's feeling my neck to make sure, nothing is out of place. And she was like, did you know that you have a thyroid nodule? And I'm like, no, but I'm not too worried about it simply because thyroid issues or thyroid nodules are pretty common, especially in women. So it wasn't cause for concern. She's like, well, I'm going to send you, for an ultrasound. Let's just get that checked out. And I said, okay, I've had ultrasounds before. Not a big deal. So then I go to the ultrasound. They're like, your doctor's going to call you. I said, okay, not a big deal. But apparently the nodule that I had was about the size of a lemon, which is pretty huge, especially because I had actually never noticed it. So then they were like, we want you to go get that biopsy. Now things are getting serious. So I go to the biopsy. It was probably about 3 months in between the time of the ultrasound and the biopsy. Now, keep in mind, I'm also planning my wedding. So I go get the biopsy, and all of a sudden after the biopsy, I'm more aware of the nodule because before I didn't know it was there, so I felt like my throat was normal. No, there's a huge bulge in my throat, and now I'm more aware of it. So now when I'm swallowing post-biopsy, I can feel it. So again, I'm still planning my wedding. So after the biopsy, things kind of calm down. And I'm not too worried because I just, nodules are common, most of them are benign. They're like, there's like a 5% chance of it being cancerous. And if there is, you go through X, Y, and Z and let out the steps. So about a couple weeks after that, literally 3 weeks before my wedding, they're like, oh, you have a 60 to 85% chance of this being papillary thyroid carcinoma. Pause. So this rocked my world. I did not know how to interpret this. I was so shocked, so scared. I had no clue what the next steps were going to be. And I'm also trying to prepare for my wedding. I'm like, oh my goodness, am I going to have to get surgery? So that's when I called my doctor takes like 5 days to tell me about, my results. So now I'm stressed out. I'm like, I understand that people think that this is a very easy cancer. It's not hard, but it's still cancer. It's still my life. And it's also something that I want to talk to someone about. This too. So I finally talked to my doctor. She refers me to a surgeon because at this point they're like, you need your thyroid removed, and that's the only way we're going to be able to determine whether or not you fully have cancer. They did give me the option to do partial or full. I opted out to do a full thyroid removal just because I've had thyroid issues for so long, and something deep down was telling me just do the full thyroid removal. So in between finding out that it might be cancer to the surgery, it was about 6 weeks, but I was still able to have my wedding. I was still able to go on my honeymoon, but directly after my honeymoon, it was like, your surgery's here. I get the surgery. They end up determining that it actually was papillary thyroid carcinoma, and there was also another speck on my other lobe of my thyroid. So the nodule was on my left, I took out the whole, but there was also something growing on the right. Also, the thing I want to note is papillary thyroid carcinoma is a very slow growing cancer. So for it to be the size of a lemon, I have had this for years, and my symptoms have been misdiagnosed, for years. And it's crazy because, people write women off, especially women off due to hormones and other things. But I think thyroid carcinoma is something that people should be tested for much earlier, especially if you are a woman, especially if you have a history, especially in your family, with thyroid issues. Anyways, that's how I found out I had cancer after being misdiagnosed and mistreated for years. So yeah, and then now I just have to do radioactive iodine